health seems to be in the news more and more in recent years. Talk about what global health is and why it's important to pay attention to it.
Global health is the health of populations globally, the priority of achieving better health. This is important to pay attention to because it addresses health issues nationally by determining issues and then coming up with solutions for these issues.
Disease can come to us in different ways. Explain the difference between communicable and non-communicable disease.
Communicable disease is something that can be transmitted from one person to another, and it is contagious. Non-communicable diseases are not infectious and cannot be transmitted from person to person.
Let's talk about Ebola, since I'm sure most of our viewers have heard a lot about that. What is it? Is it communicable or non-communicable? How do people get it?
Ebola is a communicable disease that is highly infectious. People can get it by coming in contact with infected bodily fluids.
What would raise a person's risk of getting Ebola?
Traveling to parts of the world that have outbreaks could raise the risk. Parts of the world such as perhaps Africa that have documented outbreaks. Also, people touching things in public and then touching themselves can possibly transmit the disease if you were to come in contact with something that you touched that had infected bodily fluids on it, and then do something like touch your eye or your mouth or maybe an open wound on yourself.
So to prevent or at least lessen the chance of getting Ebola, what should people do?
Refrain from traveling to any countries that have documented outbreaks, as well as refraining from touching yourself and being cognizant of being out in public and touching things and then touching yourself without properly sanitizing.
Outbreaks such as the one related to Ebola can generate a lot of rumors and misinformation and even panic about what the disease is, how it is transmitted, and how likely people are to get it. Talk about the need for educating people about facts versus myths.
The need is important because it is key that public know exactly how Ebola is contracted so they know how to prevent from getting it. They're trying to prevent from getting it under false pretenses or wrong assumptions. They could still be susceptible to contracting it. So it is important that everyone is able to decipher between facts and myths so that they are able to adequately protect themselves.
How about the complications that Ebola raises for the rights of travelers and the responsibilities of governments? Casey Hickox, for example, a nurse from Maine who returned to the States following a trip to West Africa in the fall of 2014, promptly had quarantine-related restrictions thrust upon her, restrictions that she was very much against. Briefly describe the difficulty of balancing individual rights and governmental responsibility.
It is quite hard to find the right balance between individual rights and upholding governmental responsibility all at the same time. It is the responsibility of the government to act in a way that is maintaining global health. In doing so, this can seem like it is stripping an individual of their rights in certain scenarios. However, the bigger picture takes into consideration global health, and therefore it is important in these circumstances to perhaps having to quarantine people who could possibly cause an outbreak. So the government is trying to prevent outbreaks from happening, and in turn this might temporarily affect one's rights. but it is helping overall.
Let's talk about smoking and tobacco use, which is considered a big World Health problem and raises similar issues to Ebola in terms of rights and responsibilities. Just about everyone knows that smoking harms health. What does it do to the body?
Smoking can affect a number of things in regard to the body. It can affect one's vision, it can cause unhealthy teeth, it can constrict blood vessels, it can cause persistent cough, it can cause your hair to smell, and it can cause multiple types of cancer, such as lung cancer and throat cancer.
What about secondhand smoke? Explain what that is and how it affects people.
Secondhand smoke is when you basically are around someone that's smoking, so you're susceptible to the smoke, but you're not actually smoking. For instance, a child who their parent smokes, so you're in the house where the smoke is, or in the car where the smoke is, and by default, that's secondhand smoke. This can affect people by also causing cancer due to being a secondhand smoker. It can cause asthma and multiple infections, one of the main ones being a respiratory infection.
People don't typically think of tobacco as a drug like heroin or cocaine, but the addiction it creates is strong, isn't it? Shouldn't we think of tobacco use as a form of substance abuse?
I believe tobacco should be considered to be a form of substance abuse. People become addicted to the use of it just like drugs. And also, like drugs, tobacco is something that has terrible effects on the body. The main difference is tobacco is legal while other drugs are not. So, yes, I do think that we should begin considering this as a form of substance abuse.
Thank you for talking to us.
It has been my pleasure.